Ladies and gentlemen, stimulated by that lively gratitude which I must either feel or be lost to sensibility, I have left nothing untried to render my present appearance before you worthy your attention. Out of devotion to you, I have explored the sea, the air, heaven, nay, even hell itself, like travellers in general, half in books and half in imagination. I therefore suppose a set of wags. Men they shall be, as Bobadil says, of proper disposition, like myself. I suppose them of keen and penetrating discernment, that each has some peculiar trait of humour, that they have erected their standard at a villa near town, which they call Pleasure's Encampment, that from this camp of pleasure they send regular scouts, who bring back intelligence of what passes in the world, and formally report what they have learnt to the whole corps at the headquarters, to which they constantly repair every evening. Having premised this much,
while whim and glee and jest and song display their charming treasure, mingling in gay laughter's throng, come, 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 come to the camp of pleasure, come to the camp of pleasure. All human beings have their cares, life's made of joy and sorrow. To balance life then our affairs should of our pleasures borrow. Youth's joy season, so is age, each temper, sex, complexion, in mirth may harmlessly engage, as well as in reflection. You proudly roll in wealth, you whose means are slender, you whose lungs proclaim your health, you whose frames are tender, you who wear grave wisdom's wigs, you who deal in folly, you who merry are as Greeks, you who are melancholy, you who merry are as Greeks, you who are melancholy. Where's mongst them all the cynic elf of joy the open scorner, but doth the sage and to himself took pleasure in a corner, took pleasure in a corner. In short, who sets up to despise those joys that mirth awaken, I will not rudely say he lies, but surely he's mistaken, but surely he's mistaken. While whim and glee and jest and song display their charming treasure, mingling in gay laughter's throng, come, 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 come to the camp of pleasure, come to the camp of pleasure.
The commanding officer in my corps of wags was called Brigadier Bumper. He was the first to attack either the foe or the flask, for in spite of the general remark that those soldiers who tipple are more to be feared by their host than their enemies, he could fight as well as drink. He had served well and had been but ill rewarded, yet he had none of that sourness which constantly complains of the good success of others. He used to say that the king could not satisfy everybody, and if many deserving soldiers went unprovided, it only proved that there were more men of merit in an English army than commissions to reward them. His only objection was to those soldierlings, as he called them, who nurse monkeys and comb lapdogs, who decorate their delicate frames with the very film of fashion and look like their sisters in small clothes. To these he had a mortal aversion, and it was one of his greatest pleasures to relate anecdotes to their disadvantage. The following may serve as a sample. Some men, being drafted for grenadiers, they severally passed under the standard to ascertain their respective heights. A mincing little mushroom of the above description, having climbed upon the stump of a tree to witness this ceremony, was extremely offended at one who wanted 1/4 of an inch of the given dimensions. "Take away that fellow," cried he. "How durst you, sinner, have the impudence to palm yourself as a grenadier? Take him away. I'll have none but clever fellows in my company." "Why, if that be the case," cried Rugged and Tough, scratching his head, "if I bean't clever enough to be a soldier, suppose your honour makes an officer of me." What most particularly qualified the brigadier in his post as commander-in-chief of the Wags was his turn for humour, for through him and an Irishman who I shall next introduce, every member of the community underwent a poetical probation, which was the more necessary as singing a song when called upon was an indispensable qualification for an introduction into this society. The brigadier being, of course, a military poet, you will find his probationary song, an ode, if you will, to be perfectly in character. He calls it Death or Victory.
Hark the din of distant war, how noble is the clangor! Pale death ascends his ebon car, clad in terrific anger. A doubtful fate the soldier tries, who joins the gallant quarrel. Perhaps on the gold ground he lies, no wife, no friend to close his eyes, though nobly mourned, perhaps returned his crown with victory's laurel. How many who disdaining fear rush on the desperate duty shall claim the tribute of the tear that dims the eye of beauty. A doubtful fate the soldier tries, who joins the gallant quarrel. Perhaps on the cold ground he lies, no wife, no friend to close his eyes, though nobly mourned, perhaps return his crown with victory's laurel. What noble fate can fortune give? Renown shall tell a story. If we should fall, but if we live our country's glory. 'Tis true, a doubtful fate he tries, who joins the gallant quarrel. Perhaps on the to close his eyes, though nobly mourned, perhaps return his crown with victory's laurel.
Mr. O'Gig was a true shuttle-brained Irishman. He would give his life for a bit of fun, but he would lose it rather than be guilty of a dishonourable action. He was full of frolic and philanthropy, and though he would go 10 miles for a whim, he would go 10 times as far to do an act of private generosity. There is something so comical in the straightforward humour of a true thundering Irishman that I think Mr. O'Gig will prove one of our pleasantest companions. His words tumbled so continuously over his tongue, without either order or coherence, that one of the company oddly observed, had they fallen upon paper, they would never have laid in their right place. To which he replied, "Upon my soul and conscience, though I spake what I mean, yet I never mean what I spoke. And the reason is that my tongue and my heart are like a horse and a dog upon the road. For though they jog on cheek by jowl, yet one leaves t'other a mile behind him." I shall trouble you no further with this gentleman than to give you his probationary song, which, to do it but justice, is a very original touch of pastoral poetry.
Let box and let bloods to praise London agree, or the joys of the country, my jewel for me. Where sweet is the flower that the May bush adorns, and oh charming to gather it but for the fawns. Where we walk o'er the mountains with health our cheeks glowing, as warm as a toast honey when it ain't snowing. Where nature to smile when the joyful inclines, and the sun charms us all the year round when it shines. Oh, the mountains and valleys and bushes, the pigs and the screech owls and thrushes, let box and let bloods to praise London agree. Oh, the joys of the country, my jewel for me, the joys of the country, my jewel for me. There 12 hours on a stretch we in angling delight, as patient as doves, though we get never a bite. There we pop at the wild ducks and frighten the crows, well so lovely the icicles hang to our clothes. There with aunts and with cousins and grandmothers talking, we're caught in the rain as we're all out a-walking, while the muslins and gauzes cling round each fair she, that they look all like Venuses sprung from the sea. Oh, the mountains and valleys and bushes, the pigs and the screech owls and thrushes, let bucks and let bloods to praise London agree. Oh, the joys of the country, my jewel for me, the joys of the country, my jewel for me. Then how sweet in the dog days to take the fresh air, where to save your expense the dust powders your hair. Thus pleasures like snowballs increase as they roll, and tire you to death, not forgetting the bowl, wherein mirth and good fellowship always delighting. We agree that is when we're not squabbling and fighting. They've been toast and pine bumpers we've honored ahead, just to see who most gracefully staggers to bed. Oh, the mountains and valleys and bushes, the pigs and the screech owls and thrushes, let bucks and let bloods to praise London agree. Oh, the joys of the country, my jewel for me, the joys of the country, my jewel for me.
I shall next introduce you to a seaman, for so he delighted to be called. He made it his pride that he was educated upon the forecastle, and his glory that every mutilation was an addition to English honour. He had braved every professional danger and exercised every professional generosity, till revered, admired, and imitated, with the loss of a leg and an eye, he received the thanks of his countrymen and was prevented from going to sea by being made a yellow admiral. One day, as he was hobbling along, the Irishman told him he was the proudest man living, for by my soul, said he, you have a nasty pitch in your gait that reminds one of your bravery every step you take. And now, my jolly yellow admiral, let us have your probationary song.
Old Jack the sailor, here I come, pray how you like my nib. My trousers wide, my trampers rum, my nab and flowing jib. I sail the seas from end to end, and leads a joyous life. In every mess I find a friend, in every port a wife, in every port a wife. I've heard them talk of constancy, of grief and such like fun. I've constant been to 10, cried I, but never grieved for one. The flowing sails we tars and bend to lead a roving life. In every mess to find a friend, in every port a wife, in every port a wife. I've a spanking wife at Portsmouth gates, a pygmy at Goree, an orange tawny up the straits, a black at St. Lucie. That's whatsoever cause I bend, I lead a jovial life. In every mess I find a friend, in every port a wife, in every port a wife. Wheel gaffed by death was ta'en aback, I came to bring the news. Paul whimpered sore, but what did Jack? Why, stood in William's shoes. She cut I Chace, but in the end she loved me as her life. And so she got an honest friend, and I a loving wife, and I a loving wife. Thus be we sailors all that go on fortune sea we rub. We works and loves and fights the foe and drinks the generous bub. Storms that the master splinters rend can shake a jovial life. In every mess we find a friend, in every port a wife, in every port a wife.
And now, said the brigadier, allow me to introduce you to a traveller who spoke well of none but himself. For having made the tour of Europe, he fancies he had made the tour of the world.
Sirs,
said he one evening,
when I was going to the Isle of Man, by the way of the Pyrenees, touching at Zealand, we fell in with some Armenian merchants who had been to Spitzbergen for nutmegs, going by land to Madagascar. We went in a company to... Oh, God bless me now that I should forget the name now. You know, there by Helvetius. Yes, I understand you perfectly, said O'Gig. You mean New Birmingham?
Sir, I am very much obliged to you, said the traveller. In short, it is impossible to follow him through all his tour, in which, among other things, he was stopped by an island of ice under the line, and like to have been overtaken by the Norway whirlpool off Jamaica, till having given a long dissertation on promontories, molehills, sprats, and flying dragons, and descanted on the religion of the infidels and the laws of the Algerine rovers, he congratulated himself on his safe arrival in Old England, and exclaimed, Sic transit gloria mundi. The traveller's probationary song, for so he assured the corps, was a faithful translation from a Peruvian poet. 'Tis the death song of Moniaco, who scorned life after his sovereign and relation Atabalpa had been so basely betrayed by the Spaniards.
The sun's descending in the wave. I go, my fate to brave. Ghosts of dead Incas now appear. Shriek as ye come, call from the tomb, and see if Maniaco knows to fear. O son, my sire, lend me all thy noble fire. Ilia Maniaco, to thy tomb. Oh, Atabalipa, soon shall come. Cover me with these, naught shall control the dauntless soul that shall live among its kindred stars. What is to die, to leave this clay, and breathe in everlasting day? For robes celestial shake of dust among the blessed, from care to rest, and emulate the virtues of the just. Then, son, my sire, lend me all thy noble fire. Ilia Maniaco, to thy tomb. Oh, Atabalipa, soon shall come. Cover me with these, naught shall control the dauntless soul that shall live among his kindred stars. Adieu, ye friends, vain world, adieu. This is for me, but woe for you. While I newborn shall go to find the upper hem, you shall be driven like scattered chaff before fortune's wind. Now, son, my sire, I feel all thy noble fire. Ilia Maniaco, to thy tomb. Oh, Atabalipa, soon shall come. Cover me with these, naught shall control the dauntless soul that shall live among its kindred stars.
Mr. Pry was no inconsiderable member of the Society of Wags. He was a gentleman of most wonderful penetration. Others are content with considering the face as the index of the mind. To him, it was the mind itself. Mr. Pry was a pupil of the famous Lavater, and could calculate a man's life by the twirl of his eyebrows, and enumerate all his good or bad qualities by the cock of his nose. He never was mistaken but once in his life, and that was when he fell in love. On a contemplation of the lady's face, he had found, as he imagined, all those lovely marks that imply purity of heart and sweetness of temper. But discovering after a time some symptoms of a very contrary disposition, he began a little to doubt his discernment. At length, the lady's maid, who owed her mistress a grudge, took him to the dressing-room, where, presently, the whole mystery was unravelled. Being himself a wag, he anticipated the laugh against him by the fraternity, so he wrought the circumstance into his probationary song, which he prefaced with saying it did not impeach his infallibility, for, said he, to whatever skill I may pretend as to faces, my art does not extend to masks.
Celia's an angel by her face, the rose and lily shamed. The tresses of love's queen for grace, the tresses of love's queen for grace, with her can ne'er be named. The gods cried one that face with care formed in their best of humours. What pity 'tis both face and hair, what pity 'tis both face and hair, were bought at the perfumers, were bought at the perfumers. Celia has sworn to love till death, for words so full of bliss. For words so full of bliss, I could have longed but for her breath to steal an ardent kiss. Rapture itself is poor and cold to joy that she discovers. What pity she the same has told, what pity she the same has told, to 50 other lovers, to 50 other lovers. Celia is young, behold her mien, alert from top to toe. My aunt says she was just 15, my aunt says she was just 15, some 30 years ago. Thus youth and beauty's best delights sweet Celia are adorning. For she a Venus is at nights, for she a Venus is at nights, a Sibyl in the morning, a Sibyl in the morning.
Here the Brigadier intimated a desire to pause a few moments for the arrival of Mr. Shrug, which opportunity we will likewise take advantage of for a short period. Having again entered the apartment of the wags, we found Mr. Shrug had arrived, who, it appears, was a dealer in mysteries. He knew more than anybody, but though he pretended to be very communicative, nobody was a bit the wiser for it. Everything was nod or wink, or mysterious giving out. He said it was very easy to see what was going on, for if a person he did not choose to name continued his association with another person he had rather be excused from mentioning, the natural consequence would be that a gentleman of high distinction he should conceal would inevitably break with another gentleman of illustrious family who he should keep to himself, and thus public affairs would be involved he did not choose to say how, and the nation in a predicament he had rather not divulge. "By my soul," cried the Irishman one evening, "you're like a countryman of mine, a watchman, who used to cry everything but the hour and what sort of a morning it was. Past o'clock and a morning."
A watchman I am, and I know who's all around, the housekeepers, the strays, and the lodgers. Well, there will 3 stones and high ribs may be found, odd dickies, quickies, and rum codgers. Of money and of property I'm he that takes the care, and cries when I see rogues go by, hey, what are you doing there?
Only a little business in that house. You understand me?
Understand you? Well, I believe you're an honest man. Do you hear? Bring me an odd silver candlestick.
Then to my box I creep, and then fall fast asleep, and then fall fast asleep. St. Paul strikes 1. Thus after all the mischief done, I goes and gives them warning, and loudly he bawls while strikes St. Paul's past 1 o'clock and a cloudy morning. Then round as the hour he merrily cries, another fine mess I discover. For a curious rope ladder I straightway spies, and Miss Forward expecting her lover. Then to each other's arms they fly, my life, my soul, ah, fine work, Miss Heart upon cries I'll look up your papa. No, you won't. I shall, worthy old soul, to be treated in this manner. Here, take this. Oh, you villain, want to bribe an honest watchman, and with such a trifle too.
Well, here's more.
You seem to be a spirited lad. Now, do make her a good husband. I'm glad you've tricked the old hunks. Good night. I wish you safe to Gretna Green.
Then to my box I creep, and then fall fast asleep, and then fall fast asleep. What's that? St. Paul strikes 2. The lover's off, what does I do? But gives the father warning, and loudly bawls while strikes St. Paul's past 2 o'clock and a cloudy morning. Then 'twas the square from my box as I looks, I hear such a ranting and tearing. 'Tis Pharaoh's whole host, and the pigeons and rooks are laughing and singing and swearing. Then such a band in how they blaspheme and curse. That thief has stole my diamond pin. Watch, I've lost my purse. I say watch. Yeah, I charge you, and I charges you. 'Tis a marvellous thing that honest people can't go home without being robbed. Which is the thief? That's the thief that tricked me out of £200 this evening. Ah, that, you know, is all in the way of business. But which is the thief that stole the gentleman's purse? That's him. What? Sam Snatch? Give it to me, Sam. He has not got your purse. You're mistaken in your man. Go home peaceably, and don't oblige me to take you to the watch house. Then to my box I creep, and then fall fast asleep. and then fall fast asleep. What's that? St. Paul strikes 3. Thus from my roguery I get free by giving people warning, and loudly balls while strikes St. Paul's past 3 o'clock and a cloudy morning.
Mr. Gusto was a musical amateur. He had regularly attended in Fopp's Alley at every new opera for 30 years, and missed no opportunity of noticing the extraordinary talents of every wonderful and surprising performer during that time. So everything was but extravagant and incomprehensible. Mr. Gusto always cried, "Bravo!" the first and the loudest. Indeed, nothing could exceed the sport this poor gentleman afforded to the society whenever O'Gig took it into his head to play him off. As he was one day walking with the Irishman and humming an Italian air, some boys were pelting each other. "Well then," said O'Gig, "by my conscience, you're a perfect Orpheus, for the moment you begin to sing, the stones fly about one's ears like hail." Having one evening plucked up a little more than his usual courage, he retorted upon O'Gig in his turn. "What should you know about music," said Gusto, "beyond Langolier or an Irish howl?" "Not about music," said O'Gig.
To be sure, I'm not a connoisseur, and will you now be easy? I don't the opera know at all, and then I have not heard them squall from Ingotti to Marchesi, and then Cara, the wonderful and surprising Madame Mara, who pretty well have sacked the pens and give the English sound for sense. To be sure, I'm not a connoisseur, and will you now be easy? I don't the opera know at all, and then I have not heard them squall from Ingotti to Marchesi, from Ingotti to Marchesi, with their padre, their madre, the bella sorella, the moglio, the figlio, e tutti il famiglio. The soft John Bull to take by the ears, the soft John Bull to take by the ears, to whom this Babel proves the music of the spheres. And as they go on with their dolce amare, their dolce cantare, their viva l'amor, their trombetti sonate, cannoni sparate, la la la, boo boo boo. Astonished John Bull cries out bravo encore, and swears all English music's about all English music's Valbor.
O'Gig, having been called upon for the toast, has just given the pickle that preserves the English Constitution. "Thank ye," said the Admiral. "Here's salt water, and may he who refuses to drink this toast have a salt eel." "Or a point bumper of it," said the Irishman. "That'll be just as pleasant." Various other comments were made, and among the rest it was said that the ocean was the region of honesty. "You may say that," said O'Gig. "Salt water is your only soil to grow honesty. Why, what a fine parcel of subjects this same Mr. Neptune must be after having. For if a sailor who only swims upon the surface is such a cherubimical kind of a fellow, what an angel of a creature a fish must be." "Why, if that's the case," said the Admiral, "hand us the Swizzy." "The Swizzy," said O'Gig. "And what the devil know's the Swizzy?" "The guzzle, you lob-lolly boy." "Ho, ho," said O'Gig. "I begin now to be after comprehending you. The Swizzy, ah ha ha! To be sure, there was not some meaning in the drift of introducing that word. For I can see by the twist of the Admiral's jocular muscle that we are going to have a song about Swizzy. Brigadier, will you have the civility to knock down the Admiral?" "Knock me down?" said the Admiral. "Only for a song, honey," answered the Irishman.
If bold and brave thou canst not bear thyself from all thou lov'st to tear, thyself from all thou lov'st to tear, if while wind twaw and billows roll, a spark of fear invade thy soul, if thou'rt appalled when cannons roar, I pray thee, messmate, stay ashore, there like a lubber, wine and blubber, still for thy ease and safety busy, not there to come where honest Tom and Ned and Nick and Ben and Phil and Jack and Dick and Bob and Bill all weather sing and drink the Swizzy. If shouldst thou lose a limb in fight, she who made up thy heart's delight, she who made up thy heart's delight, for recompense that thou art kind, shall prove inconstant as the wind. If such hard fortune thou deplore, I pray thee, messmate, stay ashore, there like a lubber, wine and blubber, still for thy ease and safety busy, not there to come where honest Tom and Ned and Nick and Ben and Phil and Jack and Dick and Bob and Bill all weather sing and drink the Swizzy. If prisoner in a foreign land, no friend, no money at command, no friend, no money at command, that man thou trustedst alone, all knowledge of thee shouldst disown. If this should vex thee to the core, I pray thee, messmate, stay ashore, there like a lubber, wine and blubber, still for thy ease and safety busy, not there to come where honest Tom and Ned and Nick and Ben and Phil and Jack and Dick and Bob and Bill all weather sing and drink the Swizzy.
This subject introduced a conversation on the Army and Navy, and it was agreed, among other things, that the most trying situation a brave man can experience is the moment of parting from an amiable woman he truly loves. "Faith, and you may say that," said the Irishman, "and you may add the most glorious into the bargain. For if a fine fellow of a soldier or a sailor can fight so bravely when he has left his heart behind him, what a fine noble devil would he be if he took it along with him. Yes, said the brigadier. But when a hero of this description has to part with the idol of his soul, let us picture to ourselves a beautiful creature, jealous of her husband's honour, yet distracted to think of his approaching danger. Let us suppose her fortitude subdued by her apprehensions, and that a trickling tear, like a dewdrop on a peach, betrays the blush of irresolution by rendering more transparent the native loveliness of her beautiful cheek. Two sweet pledges of their affection fill up the scene. An infant Venus, terrified at her mother's tears, clings around her for safety from she knows not what, while a young Mars, regardless of all other considerations, eyes the military trappings, grasps the sword, and seems to give an earnest of future glory. What must be at such a moment the situation of the husband, the parent, and the soldier? 'Tis a stain to his honour to betray the sensation that dignifies his feelings. He kisses off the tears, he embraces his children, he smothers the rising sign that rends his heart, and, spite of the distracting conflict, yields no more to the man than becomes the soldier. At length, collecting the whole force of his resolution, he takes a tender leave, and assures himself of safety as the meed of her virtue he adores.
Adieu, adieu, my only life, my honour calls me from thee. Remember that a soldier's wife those tears but ill become thee. What though by duty I am called, where thundering cannons rattle, where valour's self might stand appalled, where valour's self might stand appalled, when on the wings of thy love to heaven above thy fervent orisons are flown, the tender prayer thou put'st up there shall call a guardian angel down, shall call a guardian angel down to watch me in the battle. My safety thy fair truth shall be, as sword and buckler serving. My life shall be more dear to me because of thy preserving. Let peril come, let honor threat, I'll fear seek the conflict's heat. Assured when on the wings of love, assured when on the wings of love, when on the wings of thy love, to heaven above thy fervent orisons are flown, the tender prayer thou put'st up there shall call a guardian angel down, shall call a guardian angel down to watch me in the battle. Enough with that benignant smile, some kindred God inside thee. Who saw thy bosom void of guile, who wondered and admired thee. I go assured my life adieu, though murdering carnage stalk in view. When on the wings of thy true love, when on the wings of thy true love, when on the wings of thy true love, to heaven above thy fervent orisons are flown, the tender prayer thou put'st up there shall call a guardian angel down, shall call a guardian angel down to watch me in the battle.
And now, said the brigadier, having done our duty by the army and the navy, let us to business. What scouts are returned to quarters, and what have they to report? Here comes a gentleman, says one, who has heard no report, I believe, but the report of corks. Why, it's Rumpus, said the admiral. How confoundedly he yaws. He's drunk. Drunk, said O'Gig. Nor why the devil would the fellow be bringing coals to Newcastle? Well, sir, said the brigadier, and what have you to report to us? What have you seen in the world? Seen? Said Rumpus. I don't know what I have seen. Oh, sir, it is a strange world, a cursed, ridiculous world. Why, sir, they were dancing before my eyes, like so many puppets, all topsy-turvy. You are, at least, said the brigadier. But come, let us have your drinking song, forsooth.
If the beauty of truth unadorned is seen best, the man that is drunk of fair truth is the test. For liquor man's natural temper assumes, while everything artful flies off with the fumes. The visor of life is pulled off by the bowl. The visor of life is pulled off by the bowl, and the face of a drunkard exhibits his soul. Then beware all who are in rascality sunk. You'll all be detected if once you get drunk. You'll all be detected. You'll all be detected if once you get drunk. If contempt of all danger true courage gave, the man that is drunk as a lion is brave. For like any Caesar, he'll riot and storm, and talk of great deeds he's too weak to perform. He'll utter big oaths, know not what to be at, thump his head with his fist, but there's nothing in that. Then beware braggadocio, in cowardice sunk. You'll all be detected if once you get drunk. You'll all be detected if once you get drunk. You'll all be detected. You'll all be detected if once you get drunk. It's strong, it's a Dixie, true wisdom implies. The man that is drunk is like Solomon wise. Full of cocks and of bulls, he'll tell many a tale, and swear to the truth of them rather than fail. He'll reconcile opposites, true, false is true. Vouch he does not know what, or he does not know. Then beware all ye varlets, in falsity sunk. You'll all be detected if once you get drunk. You'll all be detected if once you get drunk. You'll all be detected, you'll all be detected if once you get drunk. Come on, let us drink, then right conscious the bowl. In each rosy cheek, though it light up the soul, can nothing of worldly deformity show, nor prove that we ought with honesty glow. The ordeal of truth and generous delight, which to keep us all honest we'll try every night, proving still by our acts in no meanness we're sunk. But true, honest friends, whether sober or drunk. But true, honest friends, whether sober or drunk. But true, honest friends, whether sober or drunk. Whether sober or drunk.
Well now, said O'Gig, what have I done that I'm not to make a bit of a report? Don't you know that I'm arrived after a long journey of 4 days that I've been travelling this morning? Why, I thought we'd been in London all the time, said the Brigadier. By my conscience, said O'Gig, it was an Irish journey to London, for crossing yonder field, my horse struck up a little bit of a haw-courant to the music of a pack of hounds, and ran away in spite of me 50 mile into the country. Oh, to be sure that you may get the pleasure of the chase in perfection, I have not been ever since paying my respects to those skittish tits, the muses. And pray, sir, said one, what success had you? Success? There's a pretty question, said O'Gig. Sure now, art they ladies and art I an Irishman? Oh, they've given me the prettiest little bit of descriptive poetry. They're wicked little devils, I can tell you that. Do you know that they speak of the delight of breaking one's noses over a 5-barred gate as if it was the sweetest pleasure in life? And then the horn and the morn and echo and the horses and curs are making such baboo and such a hullabaloo. But I'll give it to you, chapter and verse, and then you'll be after judging for yourselves.
Except the folk that's fast asleep, all nature now is waking. Aurora at the world a peep is in her nightcap taking. Aurora at the world a peep is in her nightcap taking. Hark all the Tory-Rory boys, hark all the Tory-Rory boys, making a devil of a noise to cure the headache of last night. The peaceable king's subjects fright, and helter-skelter come apace. Helter-skelter come apace, to enjoy the pleasures of the chase, to enjoy the pleasures of the chase. How sweet to be as on we rush by the pigtail entangling, amidst a lovely thorny bush, or on the tree left dangling, a much agrar than wine and love, the joy of hunting's far above. Can I the Cupid or the bowl, can I the Cupid or the bowl, such pleasures give by my soul. Briars and thorns may scratch your face, till great the pleasure of the chase, and helter-skelter come apace. Helter-skelter come apace, to enjoy the pleasures of the chase, to enjoy the pleasures of the chase. Then when our metal's at its pitch, while tally-ho we're bawling, safe landed in a muddy ditch, to be genteelly sprawling, a much agrar than wine and love, the joy of hunting's far above. Can I the Cupid or the bowl, can I the Cupid or the bowl, such pleasures give by my soul. Let muddy ditches wash your face, still great's the pleasure of the chase, and helter-skelter come apace. Helter-skelter come apace, to enjoy the pleasures of the chase, to enjoy the pleasures of the chase. Then dripping like a drowning rat at night, you would not think it. What glorious wine if it were not, with too fatigue to drink it. But the knot of love and war, the joy of hunting's greater far. A echo in melodious tones, hollahs and whistles, sighs and groans, while many a broken sconce and face proclaims the pleasures of the chase, proclaims the pleasures of the chase, and helter-skelter come apace. Helter-skelter come apace, to enjoy the pleasures of the chase, to enjoy the pleasures of the chase.
After Mr. O'Gig's description of the pleasures of the chase, the Brigadier informed the Corps that a new member was expected any minute, and that he should recommend the proceedings of the Society to be closed for a short time, which opportunity we shall take the liberty of embracing likewise. Having again arrived at the Camp of Pleasure, give me leave to introduce you to the headquarters, where we find a wag upon his legs proposing a new member. Being asked when they should have the pleasure of seeing the gentleman, he answered never, that his name was Gloomy, that his only happiness was misery, and his only enjoyment wretchedness, that he would not give up the ecstatic melancholy of brooding over his delicious cares to mix with the merriest society in Christendom. He should, however, send them from time to time his share in their conversation in writing, and had now submitted to them his probationary song, which he called Sound Argument.
We bipeds made up of frail clay, alas, are the children of sorrow, and though brisk and merry today, we all may be wretched tomorrow, for sunshine succeeded by rain, then fearful of life's stormy weather, lest pleasure should only bring pain. Let us all be unhappy together, let us all be unhappy together, let us all be unhappy together, for sunshine succeeded by rain, then fearful of life's stormy weather, lest pleasure should only bring pain. Let us all be unhappy together. I grant the best blessing we know is a friend, for true friendship's a treasure, and yet lest your friend prove a foe, oh, taste not the dangerous pleasure. Thus friendship's a slimy affair, thus riches and health are a bauble. There's nothing delightful but care, nor anything pleasing but trouble. Let us all be unhappy together, let us all be unhappy together, for sunshine succeeded by rain, then fearful of life's stormy weather, lest pleasure should only bring pain. Let us all be unhappy together. If a mortal would point out that life that on earth could be nearest to heaven, let him thanking his stars choose a wife to whom truth and honor are given. But honor and truth are so rare, and horns when they're cutting so tingle, that with all my respect to the fair, I'd advise him to sigh and live single. Let us all be unhappy together, let us all be unhappy together, for sunshine succeeded by rain, then fearful of life's stormy weather, lest pleasure should only bring pain. Let us all be unhappy together. It appears from these premises plain that wisdom is nothing but folly, that pleasure's a term that means pain, and that joy is your true melancholy, that all those who laugh ought to cry, that 'tis fine first and fun to be grieving, and that since we must all of us die, we should taste no enjoyment while living. Let us all be unhappy together. Let us all be unhappy together. For sunshine succeeded by rain, then fearful of life's stormy weather, lest pleasure should only bring pain. Let us all be unhappy together.
I shall follow up Mr. Gloomy with a very curious gentleman whose name was Afterclap. He was continually so full of business that for the life of him he could never be punctual to an appointment. He always found the audience coming away at the playhouse, and the wine upon the table at dinner. He never wrote a letter till the billman was at the door, nor took a place in a stagecoach, but he lost his deposit money. Being too late to fight a duel, he was proclaimed a coward in the newspapers, and having stayed beyond the canonical hour when he was to be married, he lost a fine woman and £30,000. He would never have been able to have managed a probationary song if he had not been advised to take a touch at a sequel. On this hint, he wrought a kind of second part to a song pretty well known called My Poll and My Partner Joe.
I was the pride of all the Thames, my name was Natty Jerry. The best of smarts and flashy dames I've carried in my wherry. For then no mortal soul like me so merrily did jog it. I loved my wife and friend, you see, and won the prize of dog it. I loved my wife and friend, you see, and won the prize of dog it. In coat and badge so neat and spruce, I rode all blithe and merry. And all the watermen did use to call me Happy Jerry, and all the watermen did use to call me Happy Jerry. But times soon changed, I went to sea, my wife and friend betrayed me, and in my absence treacherously some pretty frolics played me. Returned, I used them like a man, but still 'twas so provoking. I couldn't enjoy my very can, nor even fancy smoking. In tarnished badge and coat so queer, no longer blithe and merry. Old friends now passed me with a sneer, and called me Dismal Jerry. Old friends now passed me with a sneer, and called me Dismal Jerry. Old friends now passed me with a sneer, and called me Dismal Jerry. At sea as with a dangerous wound I lay under the surgeons. Two friends each help I wanted found in every emergence. Soon after my sweet friend and wife into that mess had brought me. These two kind friends who saved my life in my misfortune sought me. We're come, cried they, that once again in coat and badge so merry. Your kind old friends the watermen may hail you Happy Jerry. Your kind old friends the watermen may hail you Happy Jerry. Your kind old friends the watermen may hail you Happy Jerry. I'm Peggy, once your soul's desire, to whom you proved a rover. who since that time in man's attire have sought you the world over. And I cried, "T'other am that Jack, when boy you used so badly. Though now the best friend to your back, then prithee look not sadly." Few words are best, I seized their hands, my grateful heart grew merry. And now in love and friendship's bands I'm once more happy, Terry. And now in love and friendship's bands I'm once more happy, Terry. And now in love and friendship's bands I'm once more happy, Terry.
Here a servant delivered a letter to the President containing an invitation to the whole Society of Wags to be present that evening at a masquerade. The gentleman's health was drunk with 3 times 3, and they declared they would attend him in style. "Mr. President, previous to the court preparing for the masquerade," said Mr. Shrug, "let us have the Yellow Admiral's description of the players." "With all my heart," said the veteran. The company being all lovers of theatrical merit, the Yellow Admiral related an anecdote of Mrs. Chuck, the daughter of Collie Sibber. She was playing Yargo in a barn, and they were in great confusion about the difficulty of managing the business of the quarrel between Cassio and Rodrigo, for which they wanted 3 swords, whereas they had among them but 2. It was agreed, however, that one of them should stagger into the corner and so let his sword fall, as if by accident between the scenes, that thus she might find it and come on to wound Cassio. This, however, was neglected. And seeing it was impossible to get a sword, "What the devil shall I do?" said she. "I must knock the fellow down." Saying these words, she ran into the dressing room, which was also a bedchamber, and catched up an old bedpost, with which she ran furiously at Cassio, and not to be worse than her promise, laid on him pretty severely. He, speaking mechanically when he heard his cue, which was accompanied by a blow on the head, cried out, in the words of his part, "Oh, my leg is cut in 2. After the Yellow Admiral's excellent account of the actors, the society was indulged, by way of finale, with Mr. Pry's inimitable description of an auctioneer.
The auctioneer mounts and first highing and hemming addresses his audience with "Ladies and gentlemen, permit me to make on this sale a few strictures. Permit me to make on this sale a few strictures. They're comprised of some choice allegorical pictures. Lot 1 is a portrait of truth bid away. For truth, ladies and gentlemen, or what shall we say? Suppose we say £20,000 for truth. 10,000. 5. 1. 500. 100. 20 guineas. 1 guinea. Nobody put in truth. No lover nor lawyer in company stands in need of a little truth. Anything to begin with.
6pence.
And a halfpenny. Thank you, sir.
A going, come spirit, bid on. A going, come spirit, bid on. Going. Will nobody bid more? Going. Gone.
Set down truth to the gentleman in the ragged cassock.
Lot 2 is frugality, modest and meek, mild content in her eye, the fresh rose on her cheek, the offspring of prudence, the parent of health, the offspring of prudence, the parent of health, who in nature scant wishes find greases his wealth. What you say for frugality, ladies, oh fie! What nobody bid, nobody
John put frugality by. Lot 3, dissipation. Oh, that's engaged. I could have sold them if I had 1,000. Lot 4, crim con. Oh, Lord, that is disposed of by private contract. Lot 5, fashion. Come, ladies, what shall we say for fashion? £20,000. Thank you, ma'am. 25. 30. A-going, come spirit, bid on. A-going, come spirit, bid on. Going. What, nobody bid more? Mr. Smiler, to save trouble, you may send fashion to my house upon your own terms. Much obliged to your ladyship. Gone, sit down fashion to Lady Kitty Cockerhoop. Next lot is the cardinal virtues. Why, John, some strange metamorphose they have all undergone. Why, fortitude trembles and looks like a sheep. Why, fortitude trembles and looks like a sheep, while temperance is tipsy and justice asleep. And as for Ma'am Prudence, she's quite in hers. Here, John, kick the cardinal virtues downstairs. Let me see, what have we else? Conscience, oh Lord. Honour, worse and worse. A parcel of antiquated stuff. What's this? Anarchy? Why, John, what business has anarchy here? I thought you knew it was sold long enough ago for exportation. And now you talk of exportation. You know this portrait of popularity is to be sent as a public gift to the royal brothers upon the continent. Loyalty. £100,000, 200,000, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. Going, come courage, bid on. Going, come spirit, bid on. Going. 10 million in 500 places. Oh, I knew it was utterly impossible ever to find a single purchaser for loyalty. Gone, sit down loyalty to the whole nation. What remains there is little occasion to heed. Of honour and worth you have none of you need. Good humour and frolic and laughter so plump. I've sold you again and again in a lump. I've sold you again and again in a lump. The last lot's content of sweet pleasure the twin. Come the purchase content, and I'll throw pleasure in. Come, ladies and gentlemen, what shall we say for content? It is your interest to buy content. What beauty can smile? What alderman guttle without content? I had once an idea of buying it in, but content receives all its value from the reflection of yours. Come, I'll take nods and smiles for money. Much obliged to you, sir. Particularly favoured, ma'am. Highly honoured, sir. You flatter me exceedingly, miss. Going, come courage, bid on. Going, come spirit, bid on. Going. Infinitely above the full value, I am overwhelmed with gratitude. Gone. Sit down content to the present company. The auctioneer's song being ended, they retired to equip themselves for the masquerade, which opportunity we'll take, with your permission, of returning our most heartfelt thanks for the very liberal approbation which you have been pleased to favour us with.